The pit of Tartarus, the abyss even the gods fear. Part 1. The depths beyond the death. In our modern world, we think we understand the architecture of the afterlife. We've built it out of the clouds and golden gates, or perhaps a somber grey waiting room where we meet our ancestors. We like to think that even in death there is a floor, a bottom to the ocean where our souls can finally rest. But the ancient Greeks knew better. They knew that the universe was not a solid house, but a series of layers, each one darker and more fragile than the last. They knew that if you fell far enough through the cracks of the world, that you wouldn't just find death, you would find the abyss. They called it Tartarus. Most people today confuse Tartarus with the underworld, a realm of Hades. They think that's some sort of Greek hell, a place that the wicked are punished. But to the ancients, it was a shallow misunderstanding. Hades was just the basement of the world, a place of shadows and memory. Tartarus was the foundation of the house itself. It was a dungeon of the cosmos, a place so deep and so ancient that even the gods of Olympus turned their faces away when its name was whispered. Imagine, if you will, a bronze anvil. If you were to drop that anvil from the highest peak of heaven, it would fall for 9 days and 9 nights through the clouds and the stars before it finally struck the earth on the 10th morning. If you were to drop the same anvil from the surface of the earth, it would fall for another 9 days, another 9 nights, through the dirt, the rock, the veins of gold, and the rivers of the dead, before it finally came to rest on the floor of Tartarus. That is the scale of the silence we are talking about. 18 days of falling. It is a place where the air is not air, but a thick, humid pressure. It is a place where time doesn't flow, it rots. And tonight, we aren't just looking into the pit, we are going down. Because if you want to understand why the gods are the way they are, if you want to understand why they are so desperate for our worship and so terrified of the dark, you have to look at what they have locked away in the cellar. Part 2. The architecture of the void. To understand Tartarus, you have to understand that it is not just a location. It is a living entity. In the earliest whispers of Greek creation, Tartarus was one of the primordial beings, born directly out of chaos alongside Gaia, the earth. Eros, desire. He is the brother of the ground we walk on. He is the physical manifestation of the deep, dark places where the light of the sun has never been invited. The poets described it as being surrounded by a triple wall of bronze. Imagine 3 layers of cold, unyielding metal, miles thick, wrapped around the void. And around those walls, there flows a river of fire, the Phlegathon, not to provide light, but to ensure that the darkness inside is cauterized, sealed away from the rest of creation. Above it, the roots of the earth and the sea are spread out, clutching at the ceiling of the abyss like the fingers of a nervous giant. Everything we know, every mountain, every ocean, every city is essentially a lid sitting on top of a pressure cooker of shadows. But why the walls? Why the bronze? Why the fire? Because the universe has a memory, and the universe remembers that things that came before the gods, before Zeus sat on his throne of lightning, before Poseidon claimed the salt of the sea, before Hades counted the coins of the dead, there were the Titans. And before the Titans, there were even older, more chaotic forces, monstrous things. Beings of 100 hands and 50 heads. Beings with eyes like burning stars and voices like grinding tectonic plates. These were the first children of the universe. They were powerful, they were eternal, and they were fundamentally incompatible with the order that the Olympian gods wanted to build. So the gods did what all gods do, all conquerors do. They built a cage. Tartarus is that cage. It is the cosmic landfill where the mistakes of creation are thrown. It is a place where the gods hide their shadows so they can pretend to be pure. Part 3. The Prisoners of the Deep. If you were to stand at the bronze gates, gates guarded by the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed ones, who once fought alongside Zeus but are now his jailers, you would hear the sound of the world's first screams. The most famous residents are, of course, the Titans. After the Great War, known as the Titanomachy, Zeus cast his own father, Kronos, and the rest of the elder gods into the pit. For eons, these beings who once ruled the stars were forced to sit in the darkness, so thick they couldn't see their own hands. They are immortal, which is the greatest curse. You cannot kill a Titan. You can only make them wish they were dead. But they aren't the only ones. There is Tantalus, a king who thought he was smarter than the gods. He invited the Olympians to a banquet and served them the flesh of his own son, just to see if they would notice. For his hubris, he stands forever in a pool of cool, clear water in Tartarus. Above him hang branches laden with the sweet fruit, ripe pears, glowing pomegranates, succulent figs. But every time Tantalus reaches up to pluck the fruit, the wind whips the branches away, just out of his grasp, and every time he bends his parched lips to the water to drink, the pool drains into the earth, leaving nothing but dry mud. He is the father of tantalization, a man who is surrounded by everything he desires but is fated never to touch a drop. Nearby you might hear the rhythmic heavy thud of a stone. This is Sisyphus. He was the man who cheated death, not once, but twice. He tricked Hades himself, shackling the god of the dead in his own chains so that, for one time, no one on earth could die. It was beautiful. It was a brief moment of human defiance. But the gods do not tolerate defiance. Now Sisyphus is tasked with rolling a massive, jagged boulder up a steep, crumbling hill. His muscles scream, his bones grate against one another, and his lungs burn as he nears the summit. But every single time, just as the stone is about to crest the top, the weight becomes too much and the boulder slips. It crashes back down to the valley floor, and Sisyphus, with a sigh that echoes for hundreds and thousands of years, walks down to start again. He is the patron saint of the meaningless struggle. Then are the Dionysides, 49 sisters who murdered their husbands on their wedding night. Their punishment is perhaps the most psychological of all. They are given jars and told they would be free once they fill a large stone basin with water. But the basin is riddled with holes. They carry the water step after step, jar after jar, only to watch it drain instantly into the thirsty dust of Tartarus. They are a metaphor for the life spent trying to fill a hole that can never be filled. Part 4. The Shadow of Hubris. Why are these stories so persistent? Why did the Greeks need a place like Tartarus? Because Tartarus is the only place in the universe where the truth is allowed to exist. On Olympus, everything is beautiful and bright. On Earth, we have the distractions of the seasons and the busyness of our lives. But in Tartarus, there is nothing but the consequences of who you are. The prisoners of Tartarus aren't there because they were evil in the way we think today. They are there because of hubris. They are there because they forgot that they were small. Tantalus thought he could trick the gods. Sisyphus thought he could outrun his own mortality. The Titans thought that they would rule forever. Tartarus is the universe's way of saying, you are not the center. It is a reminder that there are forces older than our morality and deeper than our ambitions. When the Greeks looked at the mouth of a volcano or a deep, dark fissure in the earth, they weren't just looking at geology. They were looking at a leak. They were seeing a place where the lid was thin. They believed that the tremors of the earthquake were the titans shifting in the bronze chains. They believed that the hot, sulphurous winds that rose from the earth were the breath of the abyss itself. Tartarus was a physical reality to them, a constant, heavy presence beneath their sandals. Part 5. The Watchers at the Gate. We cannot talk about the abyss without talking about the ones who keep the door locked. The Hecatoncheires, Cotus, Briararios, and Gaius. These are the 100-handed ones. They were the firstborn sons of Gaia and Uranus, and they were so hideous, so terrifying in their power, that their own father shoved them back into the womb of the earth because he couldn't bear to look at them. Zeus eventually freed them to help him win his war against the Titans. They were the ones who threw 300 rocks at once, a literal mountain of stones to bury the Titan army. But once the war was over, Zeus realized that these giants were too dangerous to walk the earth. So he gave them a choice: return to the dark as prisoners, or stay in the dark as guards. They chose to be guards. Now they sit at the bronze gates, their 100 hands resting on the bars, their 50 heads turned towards in silence. They are the ultimate paradox, monsters guarding monsters to keep the world safe for civilized gods. They are the reminder that to maintain paradise, you have to employ the very things that you are afraid of. They are the dirty secret of Olympus. Part 6. The Modern Thinness. And here is where we bring it home. Here is why you feel that shiver. We live in a world that thinks it has conquered the abyss. We have mapped the seafloor, we have sent probes into the vacuum of space, and we have built skyscrapers that try to scrape the clouds. We have replaced the bronze walls of Tartarus with the glowing screens on our phones. We think that because we can explain the earthquake with the plate tectonics, we have removed the Titan from the equation. We think that because we can treat the Sisyphus in our lives with productivity apps, we have escaped the boulder. But the abyss doesn't care about our explanations. Tartarus is still there. It is the silence that follows the great loss. It is the feeling of being tantalized by a life you can see on Instagram but never quite touch. It is the repetitive, soul-crushing weight of a job that never seems to reach the summit. The Greeks didn't invent Tartarus. They just gave a name to the feeling of falling. They understood that the human soul is capable of depths that the sun can never reach. They understood that sometimes we are the ones who build our own triple walls of bronze. We are the ones who fill our own basins with holes. So the next time you look at a dark corner of the room, or you hear the earth groan in the middle of the night, don't just think as it's nothing. Remember the Anvil. Remember the 9 days and the 9 nights. Remember that beneath the good and the evil, beneath the light and the dark, there is a place of pure, unadulterated consequence. There is a place where the Titans still wait and where Sisyphus still sighs. The gods want you to look at the sky. They want you to look at the lightning and the gold. But the truth of who we are isn't written in the stars. It's etched into the bronze walls of the pit. Respect the abyss, because it has been there since the beginning, and it will be there for a long time after the last god has flickered out. Sit in the dark for a moment, feel the weight of the earth above you, and listen to the silence of Tartarus. It has a lot to tell you. I was your host, the Irish narrator. If you like this journey into the depths, hit the subscribe button and the like button and help us to discover more ancient myths and the dark truths that they hide. Until the mist rolls in again, stay curious and stay out of the shadows.